order to be more intentional with how, girl, okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey guys, it's Shanique. Welcome back to another episode of Comic with Talk, the interview series. I'm on a quest to become a better steward of myself in order to be more intentional with how I show up in the world. And if there's one thing that I know for sure, it's that I don't know everything. And this series is about recognizing people who have shown that they're not afraid to try out loud. I'm a firm believer that in having multiple mentors, those who are experiencing different levels of success, as a way to guide you along your own journey and to help to highlight things that you need to pay attention to. After all, these lessons learned are priceless, and if it can help you to shave a couple years of your current life lesson, then why not? It's about building a community of support, and I'm here for it. Now, my group of friends are phenomenal in their own right, mountain movers even. And so I thought, we're better to start than with them. Here with me today is Shaneil Stewart. Shaneil is a creator of House of Evolution, where she represents all things soul, all things sensuality, all things success. And she helps entrepreneurs pivot their businesses by bringing out their soulful and sexy inner seductress so that they can magnetize next level success with ease, pleasure, and without burnout. No, like that alone just trigger some magnetic movements inside. Hey Shaneil, how's it going? Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining me. Oh my gosh, like that intro. I love it. I want to start by how we met, where we met. This is about emphasizing my friend circle. So I feel like it's important to just set that tone, use that information as a foundation, and then start from there and see how you can meet someone and then your lives just kind of separate and blossom in their own right and then come back full circle. So do you remember how of it? You tell me your version and then I'll tell you mine.
So the thing is, we went to the same high school, right? So I
Yes.
know you from Arden, and the thing is, like, we only have like 320 people in our year groups, and we spend like 5 years together. So I knew you from then. I think it was really sixth form when, like, sixth form is a smaller group, so everybody gets a little bit closer. But the moment that I got like really close to you, I can remember specifically, it was when we were living on Preston Hall at UWI. Me, it was like, we have our hall name, we're going through orientation,
Yes.
we wear little sets, and
Lord of mercy. Yeah.
and I think there's just something about that container of not sleeping for days, doing sports, drama, music, dance, cooking, competitions, everything together. And I think it just allowed me to know you so much more and like get to see you as like so much closer. And then I can specifically say it was the Miss Preston Hall competition, where that was when it was even a smaller group of us. And I just felt like in that little group, you were the one that I knew from high school, and the two Shans, Shanique and Shaneil. And I just remember us one of the days we were practicing the dance for the
the intro dance, yes.
Dance, and you and I was doing some kind of flip kind of thing. And I just remember feeling at home and just feeling like, yeah, she's a Shan. This girl is a Shan. And I think for us, that's where my little affinity just continued growing. And then as we progressed throughout UWI, you were a part of the I'm Glad I'm a Girl camp, and you asked me to be one of the on-site social workers there, and I felt so honored, because you recognize me. And I think sometimes we show up and we do our thing, and it's always nice when somebody sees the things that you're doing behind the scenes and you recognize that, and I felt so appreciative. So for me, I just love that so much, because even like that camp, I invite the following year, my cousins came to that camp, and just watching your vision and how your vision was able to support their growth. One of them now, she's finishing up UWI.
Oh wow!
So crazy stuff, and I just think for me, even though you look at it as your friends inspire you, you always have inspired me as well.
Oh wow!
That's my stories. Like it started with Arden. you know, that seeds, and then, you know, Preston Hall flourish it and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I think that as we've grown into adulthood, just watching you be such a strong, empowered woman, you know, even an empowered mother, or even in business and stuff like that. Even what you're doing here, like you're stepping out of your comfort zone, and I'm just so proud of you. And so that's my journey of you.
Okay, well, so yes, we went to high school, but for me, like I always like had an opportunity where I spoke to everybody. So I never had like a group of people that I was associated with. I just, okay, if you sit down and we talk today. Today you're my best friend.
Yeah.
And that helped me to like meet and know a lot of people. And I feel like some people you just know. So okay, we're gonna have a good time. I don't know how, I don't know when yet, but I feel like there's some good vibes going on over here. And I feel like you were always so jovial. Now, whether it was like, okay, an avenue for you to hide pain, or you just like seeing people being happy, it made me feel happy. And so every time you were around, I remember just seeing you or Matthew, you guys were always doing something silly, something that just like, oh my God, look at Shaneil. And it made my day. So in college, like it was for me, Miss Preston was great, but it was like the encounters outside of that, like or chill sessions where I actually got to like hear of how passionate you were about social work, or how much this was, you know, influential, or how you want to plan out your time at Preston, how you go to Canada, and then you come back. I'm like, you can do that? Yeah, you made me see other sides to UE that I never thought was possible. And then you weren't afraid to go after it. So I remember when I was like planning around the camp, and I was like, I know who I want to come. I know who I want to come to be a social worker, because I feel like just your sense of youthfulness, like just always being able to relate to persons, just always not judgmental, always having a good time. Like that was important for the type of girls that we're coming with. And they had a ball. Like if anybody that they wanted to talk to, they always wanted to talk to you. And I feel like, you know, in my own little way, that was confirmation for me that, okay, whatever was happening, we were doing the right thing, we were in the right place, and we were with the right people. And that was really where I was like, oh wow, like you never know sometimes how you cross paths with people. And that was a confirmation for me. So I really enjoyed the journey, but I was more of like a fly on the wall until we got to like I'm glad I'm a girl. We really had to like kind of communicate and just see what was happening, how things were developing, and what that meant for the people around us. And that meant a lot. And then it's like after that, you just vanish. Like you're gone again. You're gone back to school. You're gone to this stuff. And I was like, wow, like whatever it is that was inside you that was driving, that was something that was powerful. And I just like enjoyed watching that happen or watching that come to fruition. So that was cool. That was my version.
Wow.
So
I never knew that with the Ireland thing, or like, you know, that even the Canada thing. So thank you for that. Because, you know, sometimes, and I'm sure you have this experience as well, like sometimes you're just doing your thing. And then somebody's like, Shanique, like when you, let's say you do your live stream or you do a video, somebody's like, yeah, man, this really inspired me. And you're like, you don't do it because you think it's going to inspire someone. You do it because you're like stretching out to your comfort zone, but at the same time, inspire someone. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I was watching. I'm a people watcher, so I like to like observe in the back and all those little nuances that people think that nobody's paying attention to. I normally see it. So I've been watching. Like some people like to show up only in the face of others and make it seem like, you know, they've been, you know, just doing this all this time, when, you know, it's a facade, but you can tell when it's genuine. And I've been like just creeping on the back and like, yeah. So now we get the chance to have a conversation. But I know that like assumptions, like we often make assumptions about each other, and I want to like hear your story. I want to hear, okay, like what's your story? How do you introduce yourself to the world? Like what are some of the things that drive you? What got you to this position right now? What are some of those like pivotal life moments? Whole heap of questions, but I'm interested in it all.
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest thing that's coming to me, because for me, every interview I do, like I don't have like rehearsed answers. And even though like I know some of the questions you're gonna ask, I haven't rehearsed any answers, because I believe that whoever is gonna be listening, I want to speak to them directly. I want whatever comes up to be for the people who are watching, whether now or in 5 years or in 10 years. And the thing is, the biggest piece is this thing of being afraid to be yourself and being afraid to stand up for what you want because of what other people are gonna think. And I think a lot of times, like you talk about when I was at Arden, and I was this bubbly person and everything. And the thing is, I had people who would be like, "You're always so happy. You're always like that." They were actually annoyed by the fact that I was working. I'm like,
oh wow.
Yeah. So the thing is, even in the midst of that, it's like understanding how to still be you and do what you want and trust what you're being called to do, even in the midst of people not liking it. And I think every step of the way, moving to live on Huey, on Hall, on Preston. I come from Spanish Town. Like I never need to live on Hall. I could have just got the bus. And my father was like, "No, this don't make sense." I'm like, "I'm going." When I was supposed to go Canada, people are like, "No, but that don't make sense. Why not just finish and go there?" I'm going. When I'm supposed to leave and come to Europe to study, I'm going. So I think there's always going to be people who don't agree. But when you feel in your soul that you're called to do something, you want to trust that. And I remember actually picking social work. And it was like, and I'm not a social worker now, but everything I learned in social work and everything that made me choose social work is why I do what I do now. It's the same soul, it's the same heart within me. But I remember when it was time to apply for UE, and I was filling out application form, and I put and I was supposed to apply for law, and then like marketing as like the second option or whatever. And the day I was supposed to fill up, send it in, I had this revelation, like that's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Wow.
And I went on a little self-discovery on that day, and I discovered social work. And at first I was like, social work? I don't want to take a people picnic, because when you watch TV, that's what you see.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that social work was more than that. I was just like, oh, this is what I want to do. And on that day, I just put social work, press submit, sent it in. And I remember going home and my father was like, social work. even when I started,
yeah.
I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
I remember classmates at Arden in sixth form were like, Shan Stew, that's what they used to call me, Shan Stew. No, man, wait, it's social work. So even when other people didn't get it,
you were so confident though. Like I never questioned, like, okay, you do social work. I didn't know how to say, great, what I mean. And when you explained what it was, I was like, oh, cool. Like there's so many people who could use that. Like that's before I knew about like Sissoka or all of those government entities that help with family life. I learned all of that from you. So I mean, sometimes there are gonna always be people who want to give like unsolicited advice in terms of like how you should live your life and how you should, operate. But I appreciate the fact that you were so definitive about saying, I'm going. Where did you get that resolve from? Like, it's easy to be indecisive in the face of wanting validation from others, in the face of wanting that approval and just wanting that, yes, you're doing the confirmation. Where do you think that your resolve came from, based on life experiences, or just even how you experience life?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think a big part of it is I actually don't tell people until I'm sure. So when I come to you and I say to you, this is what I'm doing, I'm already sold on it. So a lot of times what we do is we have an idea, right? Maybe you want to start a podcast. Maybe you want to do something in your business. You want to cut your hair. You want to do something. And in the middle, when we're still thinking about it, we're not sure. We go to someone else and we ask them what they think.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the person don't disagree with you, you know. It's just that because your energy is like wobbly, they feel your wobbly energy, and then they're like, well, she not sound sure, so this not sound right. So then they're like,
True.
they're like, no.
That is true.
So what I've come to realize is I had times in the past where I would say it and then it would be I wouldn't be sure and I would get discouraged and then I would always regret it.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the lesson from early on. If I want to do something, convince myself first.
Mm-hmm.
Go in my bathroom, close the door, and sit down and think. Sit down, you know, in the bathroom, and think about it until I'm sure. Why do I want it? Why shouldn't I have it? Is that true? Talk to God about it. Pray about it. If you need to fast, go on fasting, whatever you need to do to get behind it. But when you get behind it and you're sure, then you talk to other people about it. Because sometimes when you're not, because the thing is, you might be sure and then you might hear them make a perspective and it might cause you to analyze, but it will never be from fear. It's going to be from just clean energy. So that's how I see, that's really how I did that. You know, it's just, when I have an idea, my sister said that, you know, I mean, she didn't invent this phrase, obviously, but I move silent like the G in lasagna. Understand? So when I have my thing, you don't know what Shaneil is up to.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I concur. Like, I feel like when sometimes even when I'm sure, like my mother, people, old time people, and even like generations before, they call it being secretive. And they say, you know, you move too secretive. But for me, I would oftentimes wait until it's done before I say anything. So I've done do it already. So, and I'd be like, oh, you know, I did this thing. Yeah. And they'll be like, but Shanique, then they're kind of selfish. I'm like, selfish how? You can celebrate with me. But it was important for me to be in a zone in this process. And I feel like if I talk about it too soon, then I might not do it. Or, you know, it might not come out. And I want to take my L's in silence. So. Yeah.
And it's not even about just taking the L's. It's like, if you think about, you know, I mean, I won't go into the topic of the video because, you know, this is a different subject matter here today, but the video I made on Friday, right? Yeah. When I made that video, that's something that's something I was processing since last year summer. So when I am sure, then I talk about it. So the thing is, a lot of time we feel like we don't owe anybody anything. We don't need to, if you're applying for a scholarship or if you're moving to a different country, you don't owe anybody an explanation. Yeah. When you're sure, when your energy is 100% behind it, then you speak up.
Got it. And so even with all of that, like, I can understand how you would then move and start your business, or how you would then move and process, like, going and actually living in a different country, staying, not just going to school and then going back to Jamaica, but staying there, residing, designing your life. How do you handle, like, when it comes to family members, you know, your father, your sister, those who are close to you? At times, I'm sure there would have been like perspectives that, like you said, cause you to ponder. But there are also like negative reinforcements that are coming through negative situations, and they may have valid points. How do you process that? How do you help them to work through that? How do you work through that? How do you deal with negativity when it's associated with these bold moves that you want to make?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that stops us when it comes to our family and people we love is that we're afraid of rejection and abandonment. Everybody right now just know. If you are afraid of what somebody's going to say or who will get mad, it's because of fear of rejection and abandonment. And the thing is, when you know that without all those people, you will be okay, it's not an easy pill to swallow. Let me tell you this right now.
You understand? Let me just adjust my back a little bit so I can get like a brother. Go on again.
When you know that without those people, you will still be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want them to go. It doesn't mean they're going anywhere, but you need to know that you are going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when you know that if mommy upset, or daddy upset, or brother upset, or whoever upset, and them not talk to you no more, and them mad at you and them whatever, if you know that it's gonna hurt, you're gonna cry, you're gonna be sad, you're gonna miss them, but you're going to be okay, then you can trust what you're called to do and do it. And guess what normally happens?
Mm-hmm.
They support you. And even if them not agree with you, they're not going anywhere.
Wow. That
If
is true.
they're not going anywhere, they will be upset. I'm telling you this right now. I would like you, I would have a falling out with my sister. But if something happened, she'll be there. She'll be there. Come on, this happened. She's there.
Yeah.
And if she fall out with me and something happened, me we upset with her, me we angry. But me not gonna make my sister come and me go dead.
Yeah.
So we have to realize that no one is gonna reject us or abandon us. And if we interpret it as rejection or abandonment, we'll be fine.
Hmm.
We're stronger
Wow.
than we realize.
Wow. Uh, so starting off in social work, and with that backup of marketing, and now being in a position where you are helping like business owners pivot, like there is quite a bit of meandering that would have taken place from that point to this point. What was that process like for you, like in terms of making the shift? And two, like what I know you talked about, like soul aligned, full purpose and focus. What made you decide that, like, no, when I'm doing the shift, that was the time that I needed to do it? What was the impetus behind that? And how is that going for you right now?
So that's a good question, because let me tell you something. What most people don't realize, I've pivoted like every couple months. There's a pivot going on. What you have to realize is, I'm not saying you must pivot every couple months. What I'm saying is you need to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you know yourself, you just be yourself. And it sounds so cliche, Lord Jesus. It sounds so cliche, like, yeah, be yourself, be yourself. But I mean it. And here's why I mean it. When I started, my brand was Miss Inspirer.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was this Miss Inspire. But the problem with Miss Inspirer was that she thought she had to be like Oprah, and every day it was like motivational talk and inspirational, whatever. And then Shaneil was shriveling up inside like a prune, because Shaneil wants to have moments where she's like divalicious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she wanna have that, she wanna be the girl that come on, and she wanna make her little jokes and bust her little Caribbean dance moves. And it doesn't mean that everybody needs to do that, but that's what I wanted to do. And so I had to just rebrand to Shaneil. And the thing is, Shaneil is soul. So she talks about spirituality, she talks about God, manifesting, she talks about like all those things. Shaneil is sensuality. She loves to feel like a diva, like, oh my God, change of our here. And Shaneil loves talking about success, because the truth is, success not just about money, but like influence, money, impact, whatever success means to you.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I allowed myself to be Shaneil, the identity of Shaneil, I realized that I didn't have to leave out anything that was me. And I decided that I would just call in people who accepted me. And there were people who followed me when I was Miss Inspire, and when I switched to just being me. That there are people who unsubscribed, unfollowed, blocked, removed, left my community. But that's okay. Because the people who are meant to be in my world, they're there. So the reason I share this is the way I switch, or the way I pivot, and the way I meander and go through and do all of this is, I just follow God.
Mm-hmm.
I follow the divine downloads. And you know what I mean when I say, like, when I get the divine downloads, I get inspiration, I just follow it.
How long did it take you to actually, like, so we talked about earlier on how you would have that regret if you don't make the move, but I'm sure that there are certain times when you get the divine download, it's time to pivot, and you're like, but I really that's what I need to be doing. Okay, let me ponder on this for a little bit. Like, what's that process for you in terms of like, okay, this is what I need to do. Like, I talk about it a lot. I talk about like this still small voice. That's like, this is what you need to do. This is the next right step.
Yeah.
It's right here. This step right here. And so what does that process look like for you in terms of when you're making the shift? Because you're making the shift out loud. A lot of persons have the privilege of doing that like in private. You have your friend circle, it's offline. Your base is offline. You're using social media as more of just like, oh, here's what I'm doing with my life. You are using social media as more of like your tool. This is an active, important part of your business. This is how you manage your clientele. This is how you communicate with people. So you are doing that shift out loud in process. You're figuring it out loud. Like, that requires a different level of bravery to me, because you're failing out loud. If it's a situation where there are failures to be had, you're learning those lessons out loud. Like, what does that look like or feel like for you sometimes when you're looking in hindsight and you're like, oh my, I mean that? I want to hear about like what the conversations that you're having with yourself behind closed door.
Okay, this is such a juicy question. So first of all, I mean, I'm failing out loud, but the first thing I think about is that like I'm important, but I'm not that important to everybody else, because everybody have their own lives. So let's say I failed out loud. I did something I never worked on, that's online. Yeah, people going to think about it for like 2 minutes, but they have their own lives. And when we realize that like the world doesn't revolve around us, like it makes it easier, because people will move on.
Yeah.
They have bills to pay, they got families to feed, they got jobs, they got life. They think about you for like 5 minutes. Maybe if they're really bored because they're on lockdown, they will spend an hour. So maybe move on with their life. And I think when you realize that people have their own lives, you just get really comfortable knowing that, all right, for the next 2 hours, people will be talking about you. Then they will remember it's something else, they will move on. You're fine. It's okay. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then the internal process is what you see online is really like 20% of my process. 80% of it is happening behind the scenes. So I have times where I sit and I cry, or I journal, or I work my process that I teach in my program Evolve, or my sensuality journal. I work that stuff all the time. I'm always going through it. I'm working that stuff. And then there are days when I close my blinds, and I order wings, and I curl up and I watch TV and I eat wings, and I just don't think about what needs to happen. I will give myself like 4 hours to just not think about anything. Wow. And then I'm like, all right, snap out of it now. You're done. You're all right. You feel better. All right. So the thing is, when I come to the stage and I say, world, this is what I have, this is what I bring to the world, is after I've allowed myself to be a human being with emotions. That's after I've processed how I feel. That's after I've back and forth to God, but God, oh, this is gonna work, but this don't make sense. Like, but okay, so okay, all right then, okay, fine. I go through the process. And then at the end of the day, if I show up and I do it and it fails and it flops, I'll come back and I try again tomorrow. And I try again tomorrow, and I try again tomorrow, because the flop of today pales in comparison to where I'll be in 5 years, to where I'll be in 10 years.
Yeah. I love that. It's important. You talk about your community, you talk about persons who have come and gone. But in terms of your support system, you have mentioned like your sister Tamoy, you have mentioned your dad, you have mentioned your best friend Matthew. How instrumental is your support system, like for somebody who is so independent, someone who like does a lot of work like with herself, is not afraid to be alone, is not afraid to be in a vibe where you're like, okay, I'm safe right here. I'm comfortable right here. My community is just more of like supplementing that. Who are some of the people to you who have been like most instrumental in you just having that confidence in yourself, or helping you to support yourself when you're doing like these ventures, or even when you're feeling like you want to be human? Who are some of those people who are instrumental to you?
Um,
And I say that because oftentimes, whenever you're stepping out in your power or in your zone, it can be intimidating to a lot of people, family included, and it can make them think about their own lives and what they aren't doing. So it requires a specific type of people to be able to, one, not treat you any different or not make it seem like, oh, you feel like you're better than people now that you're doing this, but to constantly be a consistent in your life and show up when you need them to. Who are those people for you?
I mean, the two people come to my mind. Number one is God. So, a lot of times when we talk about the personal development, where people don't really like talking about the Bible and God and whatever, they love to talk about like universe. And I talk about universe, talk about manifesting, I talk about all that stuff. I teach manifesting, I teach quantum physics, like I teach these kind of principles and manifesting, whatever. But mine is grounded in God. And the truth is, at the end of the day, I read that book. No, I never go to a church and hear somebody tell me what it said, because I read it for myself.
Yeah.
And I believe what it says, and then what it says is then what guides me to know that I'm supported. It says like, no weapon formed against you will prosper. All things work together for good. Like, I believe those words. And so when I go through things, I look on it and I say like, all things work together for good. Nothing, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. I'm the head and not the tail. So those are the reminders, are things that keep me grounded. But then the next person would be my mother, like, she's in heaven now. She died when I was 15. For those of you who don't know, I was in high school. But she's always saw in me bigger than what I could see. And even though when I was younger, it was annoying. It's like, oh my God, give me a break. Like, leave me alone, like, why pressure me? But it taught me to know that I was capable of more, and that I could always stretch myself. And even when I think I'm going to break, I'm not going to break. I'm just going to bend and I'll be fine. I'll adjust. And I think even losing her showed me that like life is short. So at the end of the day, the petty things and playing small and holding back, like at the end of the day, life is short. She was 41 when she died. Most of my friends are turning 31 this year.
Hello, I am 25. I don't know what you're talking about.
25. Right? So little things like that, that just show me that like life is short. So at the end of the day, it's like, my support system is leaning back on the truth of who I am, who God says I am, my identity in God in that way. But then also looking at like, I'm a soul, I'm here to serve. Like, I'm like, what can I do with the life that I'm given? How can I maximize it? How can I leave a footprint that matters, So I think my support system is God. I would say God. I would say my mom and whatever she's instilled in me. Oh, outside of my dad, my sister, Matthew, that kind of thing. But then the next person would be myself. It's like being really comfortable knowing that if everybody in this world was to poof disappear, I would be okay, because I would be here for me. And there was a time, I think if you asked me that question in 2017, if I would be okay, no, I would have been like, no, I don't know if I even love myself, what's going on, oh, this blah, blah, blah. No. But now I know that at the end of the day, if everybody poofed and disappeared and I still had Shaneil, I still had me, I'd be okay. And I think everybody just needs to get to the place where we want others around us, but we have to know that even if the people we want aren't there,
we're comfortable with our own company.
Yeah,
that's important. Wow. Okay, so we talk about do you, from like how you got to this place, to talk about some of the values like, have been instilled that practice. You talk about your process and your systems. We talk about, just what that journey has been like for you to shift from being a social worker to now being a business owner, helping other business owners, kind of evolve and become their true selves and align their businesses to what their purpose is. I want to spend a few minutes just talking about what's next for you, like what the next 3-5 years in your mind as it is right now. I'm sure this is going to pivot at some point, but basically, what does that look like for you right now?
I just want everything I've learned over the past 30 years. I just want to compress it into simple principles and give it to the rest of the women in this world. Not saying men not important, or not important, men are not important, but there's something because you see what happened is, as women, we're taught that we should be strong, yeah? And we'll be strong and we have to carry the burden for everybody and we have to, look here, listen.
It burden heavy and you get tired, yeah.
Exactly. But what I'm here to teach is that there's something powerful in our weakness. There's something powerful in our heart. There's something powerful in our spirit. There's something powerful in us embodying that feminine energy of releasing and trusting and not trying to take control and hold control of everything, but like surrender. The power of surrender is so hard. And so for me, the next 3 to 5 years, I just want to touch thousands of lives, whether through my sensuality journal, through my program Evolve, through my program Rebel, through Power, through any of these programs or products. I want to get this stuff in the hands of women in every continent. In every continent, country. I want them to be able to rely on this, because the beauty of this work that I teach is to trust yourself. That's essentially what it is at the end. It's to trust yourself, to know what you want, be bold enough to face your fears and do it anyway. And I just want to compress that lesson. All the tears that I've cried, save y'all some tears. All the stress, my little gray hair pop out right here. So more 7 little gray. Yeah.
I have 30. I counted them.
You count them. Okay.
Yeah.
You see, more save them gray hair, Deshan. Like I want to save people that kind of struggle or stress. And I just want you to be able to see what's possible, know what's possible, and then shift into that energy. And just create the life that you want. Like without the struggle, without the burden, without the not being worthy, not being ready, not being good enough, having to prove yourself. What if people don't like me? To know who you are, to love who you are, and to show up unapologetically as who you are, impact people, make your money, change the world, whatever you need to do as you.
I love that. Because I feel like, not enough people hear that. Not enough people have been given the permission, or they feel as though they need the permission of others. So whether it's from the mom, whether it's from the spouse, they feel like they need the permission of others to be able to show up as themselves and, not lose anything in the process, but gain. So that's important. That's wow. Okay. So, I mean, like we've talked about a lot. And I'm down to like my last 2 questions. One is, if you were talking to your 15-year-old self, that person who just lost their mom, who was probably just still trying to show up as regular degular, but inside was not even like aware of the avalanche that was coming down. Compared to your 30-year-old self last year, Halloween. Your birthday is my anniversary, by the way. Like, that's so weird. Yeah. What would you say to her? Like, what looking back, what would you say to her and to your 60-year-old self? Like, so half and then,
Okay.
double. Is that double? Yeah. What would
Yeah.
you say to those two ladies? You're in a special moment right now where you have the opportunity to kind of look at, whether it was perfect all along and see how those paths, intertwine. But with the knowledge base that you have right now, what would you say to your future self?
So, okay. So for the 15-year-old, the thing is, I love where I'm at. I love who I am. I love the journey I've been on. I wouldn't trade any of those tears. I wouldn't trade any of those memories. I wouldn't trade any of those experiences. So I would tell her nothing. I would just leave her. I would leave her because, yeah. You know why? Because if I tell her something, knowing me, I'm gonna just think about it. I'm gonna analyze it. I'm gonna try to figure out what she did. So I'm gonna just leave her because
Wow.
she did everything she needed to do to get me to be who I am today. Thank you. I would thank you. I would say thank you. That's what I would probably say to her. For the 60-year-old, I wouldn't probably tell her nothing. I would be like asking her a question. I'm like, listen, how can I become a multi-millionaire right now? Give me tea. Tell me about my love life. Tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I go up on the TV, oh, Forbes.
Yeah. Okay.
I just
Okay.
fair questions for she. You understand? I say, like, look here, I understand say it's been 30 years, but more compress the timeline for
Wow.
you.
I think you're the first person I ever heard that they wouldn't tell that 15-year-old self nothing. Because
No.
oftentimes, if most persons would say it's going to be okay or you're doing fine, just that reinforcement. But that's interesting because that means that you saw value in those moments of uncertainties. And those,
Everything. Let me tell you something. Even after my mom died, she didn't process a lot of that hurt in that moment. But the thing is, if she had processed it, because in 2016, I remember I had like a little breakdown, right? Whereas like it was the first time I felt just like I didn't have to think about anybody else. I could just focus on me. And I
yeah,
had like breakdown around grief because I hadn't processed it properly. I mean, I
yeah,
processed it,
wow.
didn't get processed properly. And the thing is, if I did tell her, oh, process your grief or do this thing, then the lesson I learned in 2016, I wouldn't have learned that lesson in that way and I'd just be a different me. And I like me. I love me. I love where I am. I wouldn't want to change anything. So, but I would just leave her. I just leave her right alone because she did everything she needed to do for me to be who I am today. But the 60-year-old, I have a whole heap of questions. She probably would be like, I'm not tell her nothing either, but no. I have questions for them.
Wow. Okay. And last but not least, what's your favorite pizza topping?
So, I used to live in Italy.
Yes.
I speak Italian.
What? Talk to me, baby. Yeah.
Vuoi che io parlo italiano con te? Okay.
Comment allez-vous? Yeah.
So Italy, so pizza is a thing. But this would be an abomination in Italy. My top of preference.
Tell me it's pineapple.
Pineapple. They would do them something like they don't do that. They're like
Oh, wow.
pineapple on pizza. They don't even eat peanut butter. They're like peanut butter. They find a lot of things very weird. So, but
But you
pineapple.
also have like a lot of communities where people live past 100. So they may be on to something over there.
Yeah, true. Like, yeah.
I love that. Pineapple. Yes, we're definitely on the same page.
Yeah, pineapple, man. If you check my fridge, I always have pineapple juice in there.
Nice.
Fresh toast, pineapple juice. Yeah,
I
pineapple.
love it. Oh. All right. Well, I mean, thank you, Shaneil, for hopping on with me and just talking about, what your life has been like, what, that process that people oftentimes don't see, what goes on behind the scenes, what are some of the things that you tell yourself and reinforce yourself so that other persons who may be contemplating making a shift, who may be contemplating whether or not they're doing the right thing, can trust themselves and see you as that example out loud of someone who has trusted themselves multiple times and have it paid off, have seen those monumental growth and shifts in their lives, and are now in a position where they can confidently say it pays off 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And, I really appreciate you sharing. I know you share a lot on your story, so I'm going to link that below so that persons can get to really enjoy your presence, because a lot of times you be dropping gems and I'm listening and I like to listen and do something else, and then say, let me go back a little bit and scroll back so you can say that again, because it's sometimes we go through things and we just don't have the language to process it. We don't have the language to be like, I don't know how I feel. So it's when somebody else say, yes, that's how I feel. Let me play it back. That's important in terms of being able to think outside of yourself, be open to new experiences, and you really help with that more than you know. So I appreciate you for spending, these couple minutes with me and really delving a little bit further into what happens for you, because you already do so much for other people. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
Lord have mercy, don't stress me. Thank you. And for all you guys who are watching, I'll link everything to Shaneil down below. So I'll link her socials, I'll link that story that she shared, I'll link her programs. If you're interested, you can check it out. And she's so responsive on social media, so you'll definitely have someone who is real, who you can talk to. And if you feel like she's the person for you, she'll definitely help you through your journey. So I'll see you next time on Come Make a Talk. And yeah, thank you for watching. Bye-bye. All right.